Welcome to the How to Health podcast. I'm Dr. Lori Marbus, and today I'm so honored to have John Corey, producer of Forks Over Knives and Plant Pure Nation, and currently the CEO of Plant Pure Passages, who is in partnership with Plant Pure Inc., and Steve and Sue Kehoe, who are health enthusiasts of Tampa Bay. But you guys are working together on a program, or have actually produced a program and was piloted in Tampa Bay called Plant Pure Health and Weight Loss Program. And so welcome to the How to Health podcast, and thank you for your time.
Thanks, Doc.
All right. So I have so many interesting questions for you, and I really want to get started because, you know, when people see Forks Over Knives, or they see your creation, your ingenuity when it comes to building a film and bringing all the elements and making it a smooth story and something that really resonates with people, where did that begin? So if we go back in John Corey's history, where did all that love of film and history, and because you've done other films too, like the Bowden Dynasties, I know you're an FSU grad and all that good stuff. So where does that start?
It probably started with being in a large family and having a super creative father. And although he was in real estate for many, many years, he had a pent up desire to be involved in the theater. And when he retired here down in Florida, he helped start a local theater nearby and did a lot of the initially he did some of the acting, but he loved to do the directing and the producing, and he supervised over 2,000 different productions before he passed away in 2000. So he was just the sort of the fun dad. And my mom went to the American Academy of Dramatic Arts back in the 40s, where they met after the war. And he was in World War II. He was a combat cameraman in the Navy, and he was doing a lot of professional photography and was photographing a lot of the actors and actresses that were going through summer stock in those days. And that's how he met Mom. And they ended up getting married and moving to Connecticut and having 9 kids. I was number 7. And so there was always music being played, art being done, and you know, they're a little bit bohemian in their own way, and so they encourage that from all of us. And so if you met the other ones in my family, you sort of see.
Absolutely. So when did you first start picking up the camera and start going, you know, this is really what I want to do?
I would say actually my younger brother picked up the camera and he made a movie. And I was the one that was in it. I guess you could say I started it. It was just a silly kids film, and we submitted it to the local PBS Film Festival. And I don't think I was more than 11, 12 years old, and he was a couple years younger. And but when I got to college, I got involved in communications classes, and I produced my first video piece, and I knew that's what I liked doing. And to me, it was a lot more exciting than I was involved in graphic arts, but to me, it was just kind of boring when you had moving pictures, music, music, sound, everything. It was a lot better than just a sort of
You light up just even thinking about it, just you describing it, you just like lit up. So that's
awesome. And I remember feeling like this is fun. I love this. And also one thing that's interesting, when we were being raised, we were the family that didn't have a TV. And it was always kind of weird, and I always felt a little bit left out from as soon as I can remember, because when my mom got rid of the TV, I think when I was 3 or 4, because she had too many kids to look after, and there was 7 boys and 2 girls. So you talk about a rambunctious bunch, and they would come home and start watching the TV. They wouldn't get the work done. So what Mom did was Mom got rid of the TV, and she bought in its place a television for blind people, so you could hear the audio. So she could go around and she could be doing things around the house, and she wouldn't get sucked into a TV show either, but she liked to hear everything. So I kind of grew up, I think, like kids in the 30s and 40s, where you only had radio. And then, of course, I at my friend's house, I'd see it and things like that. So part of me, I don't know. I just feel like maybe that helped me visualize things or something, but it also, maybe it satisfied this kept up urge to want to be part of something that I couldn't have.
Right. Well, I think too, that would probably instigate a lot of imagination too. When you're just hearing the sound, you get to imagine the characters and the scenes and everything, and then especially in your home.
I'll never forget seeing All in the Family for the first time at a friend's house, and seeing, I visualized Edith as looking completely different because
Oh,
she had that
wow.
crazy voice, you know.
Yes.
So yeah, paging Dr. Freud.
Exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. Oh my goodness. So how did you evolve into a career? Because you also spent some time in the Air Force, and thank you for your service.
Hmm. And your service.
Absolutely, Air Force together.
Mhm.
So how did you progress into your career to where you were actually producing documentaries?
I really enjoyed the experience of ROTC at Florida State. I was a cadet for 4 years. And once a month, we would get the same film that everybody in the Air Force got back then. It was called Air Force Now. It was a 16 millimeter production. It was about 15 minutes long, and it had about 3 5-minute stories. And each of those stories would educate everybody in the Air Force. By the way, it was mandatory. You talk about a captive audience. Everybody in the Air Force had to watch this in one capacity or another, either in a classroom or in a gymnasium, as part of the wing or a squadron or flight. It was something you had to watch as part of your monthly meeting with your commander. So for me, that was when you walk into the classroom and you see the projector in the back, you go like, yes. And it was just fun. And I just sort of took to that. And I always thought, boy, that would be really fun if I could do that. What it would be like a kid in a candy store, sort of marrying the two things I really enjoy: military history. I used to watch The World at War with my father, who was in World War II, but didn't talk much about it. But on Monday nights, we'd have that special time together and watch Laurence Olivier doing, the World at War. Is 26 half hours, sort of set the standard for a TV series. And then, interestingly enough, in '97, I ended up producing a series for Thames Television, which was the follow-on to The World at War, called Secrets of War. And they sold those two series together for many years. So wow. I don't know. So I was always interested in producing. And my dad was in combat cameras. So who knows? But it all sort of came together, and I got my dream job. And I got to go to Los Angeles, California at Norton Air Force Base, which at the time was the largest military production unit. And it was called the Aerospace Audiovisual Service. And I think of they had a budget of something like $23 million a year for all of the squadrons, and our particular squadron, it got the lion's share of that, because we not only did our productions and combat camera, but we also oversaw and commissioned all of these civilian companies that would come in and make films for the military, like how to brush your teeth, or the capabilities of a certain plane, or a training film. The military's really has always been a couple steps ahead of civilians, especially when it comes to using video to sort of scale training. So if you videotape it once, you don't need to teach it in front of a group every time. You can just have people sit down and watch it. So we were doing laser interactive stuff, like the stuff that you saw on DVDs. Years later, we're doing the big lasers in the Air Force. So yeah, I was a kid in a candy store, and I got out in 1990. And with another friend from the military, we sold a series to A&E called Weapons of War. And we had George C. Scott and Joe McCraney as the hosts of that show. We ended up doing 65 hours of different types of systems for A&E. And then after that, I sold another show. I broke off and did one with Charlton Heston called Secrets of War, Sworn to Secrecy, Secrets of War. And we did 65 hours, lots of world travel all over, covering all kinds of different conflicts and secrets of intelligence, espionage, code breaking, and things like that. So
now, you've told me some really interesting stories when you were filming. Is there any particular story or secret that really stood out in your memory that you'd like to share with us? Because I heard some of them. They're pretty cool.
Oh, well, you'd have to remind me. I don't know.
It was the gentleman that you were in California in his home, and he had all these different things, but he had something. It was a secret. Oh, what was it exactly? Well, what was your favorite? Tell me your favorite.
Some of the probably the one I'll never forget was when we were on a deadline. We had just filmed George C. Scott, and we were putting together the first two episodes, the pilot episode, and then the second one, which I wrote, and we had gotten behind that week because everything was coming together, and we were literally writing the script and faxing over paragraphs, and they were printing them off at the studio, and they were recording George C. Scott. And we got to the point where I knew I was going to have to tell everybody that, and I was with the team knew about it, and we were all trying to go as fast as we could. But we knew that moment was going to come where we were going to have to say, "Sir, we don't have any more script now." We didn't know what George C. Scott was going to do or say. And just as we got to that moment, Mr. Scott says, "Hey team, I hate to tell you this, but my voice just not doing too well. Would it be okay if we do this another day? Can we stop right now?" It was one of those, you'd never forget that moment of relief, because it would have been one of the most embarrassing moments. And I was just starting out in commercial TV then. So.
Oh, wow. Wow. George C. Scott. That's incredible. So what has been your most challenging documentary? Because you also, The Last Days of World War II was nominated for a National Emmy, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
I just been really fortunate. I did a series called The Color of War. That was the first series ever done on World War II in color. And I don't know why it took all those years for somebody to figure out what I did, which was, if you're going to do a series about World War II in color, don't try to tell the whole war. And everybody, and in fact, Time Life thought that would be a good idea if we could do it if we do it that way, but tell the story A to Z of the battles and the commanders and all that. And it didn't make any sense because much of World War II was not filmed in color. Well, what I sort of came up with the idea was, how about making it about ordinary people and ordinary events? So you can take an ordinary color film that might have a shot of a guy in mud, it might have a shot of rain, it might have a shot of an enlisted man and an officer. But if you take those shots and then start logging them separately, you can use the shot of the officer and the enlisted man to talk about those issues between the boss and the superiors and how the men felt about their leaders. Or you could take the shot of the mud and the rain, and you could do a segment about weather and terrain, which is what we did. So that was probably the most challenging thing was that. And then maybe another I did a 2-hour special in China called the Long March, and that was the first sort of a Westerner to be given access to all of these locations where we sent our crew. And it basically was about Chairman Mao and being chased by Chiang Kai-shek from one side of the country to the other. They did the equivalent in 1 year of running by foot from New York to San Francisco and back again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was this amazing story. We had the access to, it's like doing a documentary on slavery and getting the series Roots to use the B-roll. So we got access to a large Chinese production that had already been done. So we were able to literally cast a cast of hundreds in some of the scenes that had already been done. But we were able to interview a lot of veterans and things. So that was really challenging because, I had spent 100 days in China to pull it off, and the language difficulties and things like that. So,
wow. So how many countries have you been to?
22.
Oh my goodness gracious. So that's incredible. So now you have all this history, the World War histories, your experience in the military, and now you're moving towards Forks Over Knives and this opportunity. So how did that happen when you went? It's such a different, or is it different filming and creating? It's a different subject, but is it a different process? It's a different creative process because you started with a different. Right.
Well, Brian Wendell, who is an executive producer of Forks Over Knives, he had a mutual friend introduced us. I'd seen each other at weddings and stuff, but we had a mutual friend that arranged a meeting, and he asked if I would be interested in reading a book called The China Study, which immediately intrigued me because I just spent 100 days there doing that film and a couple other projects. So, I just kind of knew my way around, and I was intrigued. And when he told me what it was about, I thought I was interested. And then of course the book arrived that next week, and I got halfway through it and I wrote him an email and said, maybe you should just write your own book. I didn't really see it coming together. And he wrote me back. He said, just keep on reading. And then as I did, I started to see, okay, we could, I started seeing what could be the beats of an interesting story.
So how did
it was as simple as that. He was willing to fund it, but he wanted somebody that had the experience, and then he let me hire everybody else on the crew.
So you have this book, The China Study, which is also the first book that I read by Dr. T. Colin Campbell, which I'm sure everybody who's listening has heard of. how do you pull that out of that scientific information? Because it's very heavy in the science, and for me it was a mind-blowing experience. And I was trying to figure out, how am I going to pull this into my clinical practice? Like, how am I going to take this information and start using it with patients? But you had to actually mold it into something that someone would sit still for and watch, an hour and a half or hour and 20-minute long film, right? And build a story and make it interactive, because you have such an art to that. How did you decide to do that? My favorite part of Forks Over Knives is actually the very beginning. It's just that introductory component. And how do you start something like that? Because it seems like such a massive project.
Well, first of all, having Brian as the person who saw the opportunity to to bring to a film format what he had been seeing in plant-based seminars and what he was reading in his books, he was very already seasoned in terms of concept. So he kept me on track, with sort of the tenets of the plant-based diet. But I wasn't eating this way. I wasn't hired to make the film because of my diet. In fact, quite the opposite. And nobody I hired was eating that way either. It was kind of just another gig. But as I do so often, I just found people a lot smarter than I am. And one of them was Lee Fulkerson. I had Lee come on as a series producer of The Color of War, that color series I was talking about. And Lee is a master wordsmith, real smart guy, super well read. And I know, I just knew from his experience, he had the intellect and he had sort of the bandwidth, and he likes to do one thing at a time. And I knew he could go toe to toe with these scientists if he had to, and he would be terrific to be the one that actually constructed the narrative with Brian. And then I did most of the directing of the film, and also I went out and met with all the people you meet throughout the film, and did the interviews with them, or got them to get up early in the morning and go running so we could get that one shot. Whether it's Dr. Esselstyn on a bike, or Dr. Campbell, or Ruth Heydrich, or Mac Danzig punch it, because I felt my challenge, and Lee does not necessarily comes from a directing background. He's more of a writer director. And I just felt like the nutrition is not an exciting subject. Even though the stakes are high with life and death, we really didn't have a lot of reality. And then Brian suggested we bring some reality into it. So we tracked some patients, but it just felt like it was important to be able to get in there and bring some life and some action, and have the camera move, where just physically move it. So that's kind of, and then obviously selecting the people that we wanted to be in the film, and then constructing there's a lot of storylines. If you actually track, if you start doing an outline of that film, there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there is.
And we trusted the audience to be able to put it all together. And I was worried, really, frankly, because even at the end, I was just worried that it was either too dense, that we didn't let it breathe enough, or that it might just leave people behind. And some people, nowadays people like to be spoon-fed. They like everything dumbed down and simplified. And we decided to keep everything in the vernacular of the plant-based community, even if it's for first-timers. And it's interesting. We've heard in the years since many stories of people saying, "I've watched it several times, and I get something out of it every time."
Yep.
And for those people, then while they might not pick up on something immediately, they're going to go back for more. And the reason was we would build these blocks separately, each of the stories. Like, for example, the protein going from when Dr. Campbell did his lab rat studies, and he showed how you could literally turn cancer on and off. And that story is a real mind blower when we cut it, it was about 4 minutes long. But then every other story had a really great beginning and a middle and end too. So as we strung it all together, I was worried it was going to be too much, too short amount of time or something.
I mean, honestly, that film is such a nidus for so many people's change. It's kind of what the health is more recently, but it really is. And I even still now, when I talk to patients, regardless of when and what kind, go watch Forks Over Knives. It's a really simple, non-scary thing to do. I'm not asking someone to open up a 400-page book and try to dive in and delve in, but it's just go sit and turn on your television and watch us, or watch it on your laptop. So I know a lot of people say thank you, because I know when I introduce people you know, like, and by the way, this is John Corey. They're like, thank you, John, for, you know, everything you've done. And so I say thank you for them and me, because I've made my children watch it at least twice. I watched it multiple times. So,
and it's so easy to say, just it's on Netflix. You know, just go watch it.
Yeah, exactly. It really is. But then that led to Plant Pure Nation, was kind of the next one in that line. So how did that come about? Because that's with Nelson Campbell.
Well, you know, when I finished the China study, two questions came to mind. One, why can this really be true? Because when you're hearing it for the first time, you're kind of blown away. And one of the reasons you are is for the second reason. You say, how come I've never heard of this before? So when Nelson started putting together Plant Pure, he had Lee come aboard. Initially, I was doing some other things, and they did the reality portion of what is Plant Pure Nation in the little town of Mebane. And the premise was, what happens when you take a small southern town and you give people just 10 days to change their diet? Will they like it? Will they accept it? You know, they're used to Southern comfort foods, and how will that all go? And then they brought me on board. We decided to make it a little bit bigger. And Nelson really wanted to take that question, why don't we know this, and incorporate that into the story. So I don't want to give much of it away, but it's really interesting because we had to take a lot of risks and take some chances to be able to expose, if you will, the reasons why we haven't heard about this, and basically it's one of those follow the money stories, and you know, who has the money and who has the power, and who controls the agenda. And when you see that just about 10 companies control virtually all of the brands, food brands that we have now, and things like that, you start to realize, well, they not only control the brands, they control the millions and millions of dollars, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising for all of those brands. And so then if you're looking for the media companies to be really forthright about this and out in front reporting this, you'll see a report every now and then. But those media companies make their living off those 10, you know, major branding companies that own all of these brands. So there's been such a consolidation that really there's a lot of power in messaging, and that power is derived from people writing the checks.
Wow. Yeah, it's quite the watch, because I actually watched it when you first released it. It was still a rough cut, was on the Holistic Holiday Cruise in 2015. So that was really an eye-opener. It's like, makes a lot more sense. Wow. So you also, you know, I really would like to, because the most recent thing you've done was the Bobby story, Bobby Bowden. Is it Bowden or Bowden? I've heard Bowden. Bowden. And the Bowden dynasty, and it's the story of faith and family and football. And I know that's kind of a really cool one for you. Can you tell us a little bit about it and where we can find it?
Well, you can find it at bowdendynasty.com. And thanks to Nelson, I was able to produce that film while I was still with Plant Pure. I'm still with Plant Pure, but some alumni friends of mine were able to fund a film that I had in production that I had the idea to do it, you know, back in 2011, and we saw a moment of time to actually film that and put it together. And it's about Coach Bobby Bowden and his arrival. Well, really, it's his life story, and he's the second winningest college coach in America, and he's just got this great story of faith, story of family, story of football. It really is. It's kind of a cliche title, but it really fit for him. And so it's something that I was able to hire a team that had done a number of ESPN 30 for 30s and ESPN films. And they're a two-man team out of Charlotte, Rob Harvell and Brian Goodwin by name. Cool. And they put this thing together, and it was just fabulous. And so it came out last year, and looking for a TV home for it now.
Yeah.
But that may be my last documentary for a while.
For a while.
Yeah. Cool.
Don't hang up your camera quite yet, though, right? But now you have, I mean, you've now moved on to Plant Pure Health and Weight Loss Program, which is a program that's, like we said earlier, you're the CEO of Plant Pure Passages, and then there's in partnership with Nelson and Plant Pure, and then of course Steve and Sue Kehoe, who are also in Tampa. So when we talk about this plant pure health and weight loss, people are going, well, what is that? That's something new. Mm-hmm. It's a different type of program, and why, maybe you could give us some idea of why you think there's even a place for that in the market. Can you give me an idea of what it is? What should people expect? How can they get involved?
Okay. Yeah. Thanks. It's really been wonderful for me to be on the Plant Pure, just taking this ride with Nelson, because he's fearless. And what he and Kim have done since they started Plant Pure Nation, let's look at what they've done. Not only just have they just started Plant Pure communities and all of those wonderful initiatives, they just did another announcement about the restaurant campaign with John Sally last week. But on the food end, Nelson had experience putting together a frozen food line in another life, and brought his expertise with Sean LePay, one of our food experts up in Toronto. And they managed to, they put out 10 frozen dinners that are 16 ounces, all plant-based, with low or no sugar, and low no chemicals, and all the good stuff. Yeah, oil-free and whole food, plant-based, and phenomenal food, and 16 ounces, and they were delivered to less than $8. So what a fantastic! You're talking about fast food prices. So it was just fun to be part of that and help that get released after the film came out. We helped with the marketing of that and the building the websites and then I kind of put together a lot of videos for Plant Pure TV. And then Nelson came out with the dry line, which are the kitchen starters. That's like Hamburger Helper. But instead of adding hamburger to the seasonings and to their staples like either peas or pastas, they added you add veggies. Mm-hmm. So it's a real simple idea, but it's super economical. For you can feed a family of 4, each a 16-ounce serving for $10, $12, maybe $13, depending on how much the vegetables cost. So what a great idea. And that's what Nelson wanted to do, is to make it accessible for people that aren't, that don't necessarily can't afford it. And then recently they came out with another 10 more frozen. So now we're talking 20 frozen and then 10 dry line. They have 30 different entrees. I don't know if anybody else out there is doing anything even close to that. And Publix just recently, over 800 stores now carry 4 of the frozen. They're a smaller size at 12 ounces, but they're going out the door for $4.99. Wow! So it's exciting to be around that. And with I helped build a 10-day jumpstart program with Dr. Jim Markham, who's in the film Plant Pure Nation, a couple of years ago. And then last summer we took that 10-day jumpstart, and then we expanded it to 21, because a lot of people see the film and they come to our website. We say, hey, take the 10-day jumpstart challenge, and so they buy enough food to eat for 10 days, and then they get on the email list, and Dr. Markham gives them a little tutorial every day. So having taken that with Laura Dietrich, our health coach in Louisville, we built that into a 21-day program last summer. So I've been around it. I've been around the education, been around the food, but all the while something Dr. Markham said to me really stuck. And he said, you think about the different ways that people come to this diet. And a lot of people come to it for one reason or another, but one benefit they almost all get is a weight loss. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing that 7 out of 10 Americans needs and they want. So I approached Nelson about a year and a half ago about this idea, and then I started developing it. And we got Steve and Sue Kehoe on board to help us produce it. And the idea was to create a program that uses our food, but you don't necessarily have to eat the Plant Pure food. It's just so convenient and it's so inexpensive.
Right.
But the program is built around a seminar, a 5-hour seminar. It's the keystone. And what the premise I started off with was, I want to take a PowerPoint, but I want to treat it like it's television. So I don't want just a bunch of slides. Because PowerPoints evolve, so it's not your dad's PowerPoint anymore. It's and I've got a terrific producer, Barbara Nolan, here in Tampa Bay. Phenomenal, gifted producer, and she brought a lot of animation to the slides. So we didn't want anything to be boring. Nowadays, it's not uncommon to hear somebody say, "Oh, I watched the House of Cards the other day, or Game of Thrones, or whatever series they'll binge watch 5 or 6 hours on a Saturday or Sunday. It's not a big deal.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal was to create a 5-hour seminar experience that was like that had a lot of inspirational stories, a lot of video, a lot of testimonials, but a lot of science. And the idea was, how can we make something for the average Joe, the average Jane, that just wants to lose weight? They don't have the money or the time necessarily to fly to Atlanta or New York or somewhere and buy an expensive ticket and an expensive hotel, an expensive plane ride, and they don't have a whole weekend to give away for that, because if they got kids and they got Little League and stuff like that, they want to get just as healthy as anybody else. And also it's cost prohibitive. So we decided to create a seminar program that could be delivered on a local level, but produced with sort of some of the techniques tricks of the trade that I picked up over the years. Really super happy with it. I couldn't have found a better partner than Steve Kehoe, because he's got a real good understanding. His wife had stage 4 breast cancer. She was given 2 years to live. And he just happened to see a show on television about plant-based nutrition, and he's an engineer. He said, I want to figure this out. He started reading every book he could. He started going to every seminar he could, and read everything, and began cooking for his wife, Sue. And she's been cancer-free for 6 years now. So he's a great partner. So I feel like I helped produce him, and he helped produce me in ways. So we've got a really cool 5-hour program. And what we did was we decided to tuck that make that the cornerstone, the beginning of somebody's journey. And the premise was, we want to take somebody that's never heard of anything about plant-based and make that argument in 5 hours. And if we can do it well enough, we can get them to buy in and eat the food and go another 28 days. So can we just make enough of an impression in one day or 2 evenings? We're teaching it in 2 evening courses. But that was the idea, is to try to really get them curious enough and interested enough.
Because it leads them down the path of, wow, what is this, to why, and then at the end they're like, why didn't I hear about this before? It's kind of like you evolve through the Forks Over Knives. I think that's when I've seen the 5 hours is, and then you give them enough of the practical approaches in the daily emails and everything to really make a difference. So why do you think there's a place in the market for that? I mean, why would someone even bother?
Well, I tell you, one of the things I find, and I've been to a lot of plant-based seminars and conferences over the years, and oftentimes you have a lot of experts that are showing up, and they're getting paid they're getting paid handsomely to come and talk, but they don't necessarily coordinate with each other. And so you'll find that they're either covering the same material. There's a lot of overlap, and then there's a lot of overlap and redundancy, and then sometimes there are holes here and there. And then oftentimes you find that many people that are there, they're not there to be converted. They've already bought in. They're there to have some reaffirmation, and they want to meet some of these people that they've seen in films or books or read their books and things. And there's a place for that, and that's all fine and good. But what about the average Joe down here in Tampa Bay? He's maybe he works for Pepsi and he drives a truck and he just has a Saturday. So and if you got those 5 hours, you can't be redundant and repetitive. You've got to make the case. So we start off in hour 1 by talking about the standard American diet. And we show people that they're just like everybody else. 70% of us, they're in the majority. If you're going to a weight loss clinic, you're in the majority now. But we've got a lot of disarming statistics. And then most importantly, for each of the hours, they get to meet one person. And we interviewed some, these people, Anthony Masiello and Tim Kaufman.
Yeah.
And Carlene Bridgman from here in Clearwater. They're amazing. They tell their stories in each of the hours. You meet them in the beginning and you follow the story throughout the hours. So what it does is it takes a lot of, if you will, science slides, and they take it from your brain and they kind of put it, you have to start running that through your heart, because now you're watching the story of somebody who was really in bad shape. And these guys were all all in different stages of despair. And so that's why I think there's a place for it. And then hour 2 is the science of the plant-based diet. Hour 3 is the transition. Hour 4 is cooking and prepping and pantry and purging the bad stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Hour 5 is my favorite. Hour 5 is the community, the plant-based community.
Mm-hmm.
And what we do is we here in Tampa Bay, we give them slides, we give them information, things like, here's how Happy Cow works. Try Happy Cow. If you want to look for restaurants, here are the restaurants in our area that are really good. Hey, did you know about that meetup group that meets over here? There's another meetup group that meets over here. There's a Veg Fest. It's on every November.
Mm-hmm.
And then we mentioned the Plant Pure communities and the Plant Pure pods, and we show Nelson's videos about how he thought up the pod idea. And the idea is for that person, you have to remember that, for a lot of us, we evolved over time to kind of accept the Plant Pure diet, but we've only got 5 hours, and we want that person to feel as comfortable as possible. We also have to get them ready for, this is your parent, your friends might think this, or your coworkers might say that, and we try to give them all the ammo they need to go out there and just do 28 days in peace, because, like I say, you can watch a film about the diet, you can read a book about the diet. There's nothing better than listening to your body tell you, I feel great.
Right.
Then your numbers are changing. So we just developed into a more of a full program where the people sign up on our website. They get the biometric testing done before they come in. They get 7 days of warm up emails, and then they get 21 days of the Jumpstart program while they're going through the program, and then they also get 7 days of transition after the 2-day seminar or the 1-day seminar. We do a shopping visit as soon as we can. Publix has been great. We go to another store called Sprouts. Mm-hmm. Then 14 days after the seminar, they have a reunion. It's a halfway point, and then we have a cooking class. But it's not really a cooking class where we're all going to make this elaborate meal. It's really showing them how you can cook without oil, and showing them some of the gadgets like the Yonana machine. And some people, they've never seen a NutriBullet and how simple that can be.
Right.
And so we do some simple wraps and pizzas and things like that don't require a lot of a big oven and things like that. And then 2 weeks after that, which is the 28-day point, they finish the program. They get an email. We give them a coupon to a local, to an on-site place that will give them a prescription to get their blood test done again. And they come to our reunion party after 28 days of the seminar. That's right. We try to time it about 4 weeks out, and we recognize the people because we have them weigh in. If they want to be part of a contest, they can weigh in at the seminar, and then they can weigh in again at the reunion party. They can they can give us their numbers, and then we recognize the people that lost the most percentage of weight and the most percentage of cholesterol. So it's fun, and I found that was the easiest class to teach because when Steve and I had our first group go through, we couldn't shut them up. we had to get out of there, and everybody wanted to share what they were going through, and you see the light bulbs are going off, and they're like, yeah, because so much of this information, it really does sound too good to be true. And so I think for a lot of people, they just think it's another gimmick or another kind of sales job. So, but when people are actually living it, it's really exciting. So that's sort of it in a nutshell. And what we wanted to do is not only do it here in Tampa Bay, but we're now licensing the program, and we already have 5 other licensees in the process of getting up and running for the new year, and in New Jersey, and New York, and Iowa, South Carolina, even an air base in Japan. One of the doctors out there is going to run the program. We can't ship them the food in Japan, but they're going to run the program nonetheless. So we're really excited to be able to help these people. There's a lot of people that are interested in having a program like this, because it is like Jenny Craig, where you get the food delivered, but it's also like Weight Watchers, where you get to coach and teach and have the accountability and the weigh-ins. But it's simple enough where you can get your arms around it. And most importantly, for people that have the desire to teach a course like this, they can make a living doing it. And that's important. It's important that people, not sacrifice themselves. And a lot of folks out there that are just bending over backwards and sacrificing their time and everything else. But you've got to be able to support yourself to continue that. Not everybody can do that out of the goodness of their own hearts. So we designed it so that it could be successful for everybody involved. So wow. That's going to be our challenge this next year, is supporting the licensees and growing the company out.
Wow. And they can find you at plantpurehealthandweightloss.com. Mm-hmm. And then let's say there isn't anywhere local that you don't have that program at, you're just getting going. they can also go to plantpurenation, right? .com, or where can they go to sign up for like the 10-day jump starts and stuff like that, or
Well,
find
they
the
don't.
pods?
If they want to get involved, if people just want to get involved in the pods, they can go to plantpurecommunities.org.
Okay.
If you want to buy the food, you can go to Plant Pure Nation. But we're the only of the Plant Pure Health and Weight Loss.com is the only site that for what we're doing, which is this program.
Gotcha. Cool. So with all of that, and you've made documentaries, and you've made documentaries about people who've changed their lives, and you're meeting all these luminaries in the field. What has changed in your life? So when did you decide, hey, I'm going to go on the plant-based diet, and what happened?
Gradually throughout the production, not only me, but almost everybody on the crew started doing it out of respect for the doctors we were covering. By that time, we had sat down with Dr. Esselstyn, heard his story, and said, "This is going to be a good day. That's a great match." Mm-hmm. And then you start reading Prevent and Reverse, and you said, "There's something to this." So all of us gradually got into it. And my mother-in-law, I always cite her as patient zero for Forks Over Knives, because only about a few weeks into it, I told her about what I was up to. And just by virtue of that phone call, she went online, looked it up, and just started doing her own research. And she transitioned within weeks. And I saw her at that time; she was 79. And later that summer, the summer of 2010, she took us all to Africa. All her kids and her grandkids. We all went to Africa, and Bev Kelly is her name, and she ran circles around all of us. And she said, "John, I didn't know I had another gear. I thought I was just getting old."
She's adorable. I've met her, and she is. I mean, when I met her, she was already on her way out to go and take care of her older neighbors in their 90s.
Yeah, and since then, every 5 years we do something special. We went to Italy in 2015. Same thing.
Wow.
She ran circles around everybody through Tuscany and all that. So it's fun. And then my wife transitioned. My kids are leaning into it, and that's always good. It's tough when you got teenagers and pizza boxes and things, but everybody knows what happens when you lean into it heavier in some weeks than others. So
right.
The point's been made. And
right.
so yeah, and then I guess the most satisfaction I get is, I was talking to Brian Wendell about this a couple weeks ago. I'm really satisfied by the amount of people that have entered this entered this field, if you will, in one way or another. Maybe they started a restaurant, or they started a meal delivery service, or maybe they're coaching or something like that. But they were inspired by Forks Over Knives, or they were inspired by Plant Pure Nation. So to be a part of that and kind of feel like you've been able to help play a part in helping people take what might be complicated information and make it digestible and accessible. That's really so I get a lot of satisfaction out of that. It's probably easier to have people change their religion than their diet. So. For a lot of people, I think that's true. It's because we're talking about eating hundreds of thousands of meals by the time you're in your 50s, and 60s, and it's hard. Those habits are hard to break for a lot of people.
But I think what needs to be pointed out is that you're so humble about it, that you literally, Forks Over Knives has changed lives. For you to take that information and put it in such a palatable form. It was so enjoyable to watch. Even though I may have watched it twice or 3 times, I could go and watch it again and still be enthralled the entire time. So
also I have to be humble, because it wasn't just me. It was Brian, Fulkerson. It was our editors, our
everybody,
our cameraman, and of course the team too. Everybody played a role in that. When Rip Esselstyn went up that fire pole without using his legs, I remember looking at the cameraman and saying, "You got that, didn't you?" And then I ran up to the top, and I remember I said, "Hey, Rip, you have it in you to do that one more time so we get a shot?" He's like, "Yeah, sure, I'll go do it." So, and then the one day we were with Rip, and they literally had 2 or 3 alarms where they had to run off on calls, and we were able to document and get those shots done that day. So we had a lot of what we call happy accidents along the way. So the production gods were good to us on many an occasion. So, and also anytime you do something with television or film, you've sat through the credits of films. It's a true collaborative art. This isn't one person with an easel. This is a collaborative thing. So
right, absolutely.
Yeah. So I don't ever want to sit here and claim to have any more authorship than anybody else.
It's pretty incredible still, however. But so in closing, because I know I've used up your hour, and sorry to go over just a little bit, but do you have one bit of advice for, let's say, someone, because now you're starting this company and you're sending it out into the United States and the world to help people transition. What is the one bit of advice if you have someone who's listening or watching and going, what is this plant-based diet? Maybe I should do this. Maybe I should look into it. What is the one thing that you've noticed or said to someone, or the one piece of advice that might help someone just tip them over into actually moving into this idea of trying this?
Yeah, that's the easiest question you've asked me. Because of all the hard work that Kim Campbell did, developing those 20 frozen lines of 16 ounces each, and then developing the 10 dry lines, where you're getting for about $100 after you buy the packet and you buy the vegetables, you can create 40 servings for about $100. Think about that.
Wow.
Talking about feeding a family of 4 for about $10, maybe $12. That's phenomenal. So what I tell people, the biggest advice I give them, I just say, go buy the food. And if you live in Alabama or Georgia, South or North Carolina or Florida, I say, go to Publix. Just go to Publix. Eat the food. Talk to me later. Because what Kim, the brilliant thing of what Kim did was she didn't make a bunch of rabbit food. She made foods in the familiar flavors we're used to, whether it's curry or barbecue or something Italian, the meatballs and things like that. She kept the flavors that people are used to. She just changed out the ingredients. It was so smart, so so intuitive. So for people that want to get a start, it's easy for me to say, of course, watch the movie, read the book. Yeah, that's fine. But eat the food.
Just eat the food.
Eat the food. When we have people go through our program, we suggest that they buy 20 of the frozen. And then if they purchase 10 of the dry line, that will give them the 60 servings they need to go through the 28 days. There's your lunch and your dinner. And when you do the math, it comes out to $4 for a lunch and $4 for a dinner. And then the program itself is about $5. And plus you get emails for a whole year. You get 12 newsletters. You get access to the Digital Summit Library with 60 amazing speakers. And I know, like yourself. So we just try, and you get a download of Plant Pure Nation. So we just try to create the program to make it irresistible. But the food itself, it's not just the food, but the food is cheaper than regular food. So when somebody says, "Wait a minute, you mean I can eat for a whole month, with the exception of breakfast, but I can eat for a whole month for $240?" Chances are that's cheaper than them eating the way they normally might anyway. So I just think that's the best thing you could do is just try the food. And then if you don't like it after that, you don't like you might not like the flavors or whatever, but you're going to feel different and you're going to think differently once your body starts talking to your head. Your head starts talking to your heart. You start saying, "Oh, this, and also it's not that hard."
Right.
It's not that hard. And that's the thing, especially when people are transitioning, it's a lot to ask somebody to cook for themselves and do this all by themselves. So Nelson and Kim made it so easy for people that either can't afford it or people that would just like to have it done for them. I went over to dinner to a friend's house last night, and on the way I stopped by Publix and picked up 4 of the dinners and brought it to them. They were expecting me to bring a bottle of wine. I brought them 4 of the dinners instead. It was $20, and they were so appreciative.
That's awesome.
And it made a great little conversation piece, and they're going to try it, and so
I think they should deliver them to hospitals and deliver them to their hospital patients. Honestly,
yeah, absolutely.
That would be the best place to send all of their frozen meals. It needs to be. And Kim and Nelson have the heart of gold. They're the kindest people. I mean, and I think that's the one thing that I've enjoyed so much about being part of this community is that everyone I meet, it's like family. Like we were talking when we were in that last conference in Tucson. It was just like, it's like walking into a hallway of family you don't know have yet, but we're all in the same boat, wanting to help people to just eat well and be well. So
I agree. And also when you go to these conferences, we went to the one you mentioned and the other one, the
Plantrition Project,
the plant-based healthcare conference in Anaheim. Now you're meeting 700, 800 professionals, and who have all sort of seen this as the way to go. And it's a really good group. You wish the whole world was like that, you know.
I tell you, it's even hard for me to go to any AAFP or the American Academy of Family Practice like conferences. They're just, and we're family doctors. Like, we're supposed to be like the huggy lovey ones, like pediatricians, and we're it's so different. It is so, it's like, I don't even, nope.
Some of the unhealthiest people you'll meet are the doctors and nurses at the hospital you go to.
Yeah, we are very poor about taking care of ourselves, but we're dispensing life-saving messages or not dispensing the proper messages. So that's, I totally get it. That's for sure. Well, Mr. Corey, thank you so much for your time. That was brilliant, and I loved it so much. And
Thanks.
Everyone says thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lori Marbas.
All right.
Major Marbas, USAF.
That's right, Captain Corey. Oh, goodness. Oh, thank you again.